Castle in Marietta held a cemetery tour at the Harmar Cemetery, focusing on those involved with the Underground Railroad. Executive Director of the Castle, Scott Britton, says the Harmar Cemetery is one of the oldest pioneer cemeteries, making it an important part of Marietta history. Britton says David Putnam Jr., the Harrison and Muncie families were all buried in the cemetery. Charles Sumner Harrison, who was the first African American to graduate from Marietta College, is also buried there. Britton says it's important to recognize the history because it was influential during the Civil War era.
This was such a big Civil War area because of all the enlistments that came out of Washington County. Over half of all the men of fighting age joined up in the service, and a large part that has to do with the Underground Railroad, the abolitionist movement, and the heart of that really is right here in the Harmar area.
Britton added the tour discusses an incident from David Putnam's house where protesters came to his house while he was trying to hide a family that was attempting to go north to gain freedom.